This call is now being recorded.
Welcome to the Space Economy, your destination for the business of space, as well as forecasts into the future. Of course, this is all for educational purposes. This is not investment advice. And do not misconstrue me as an economist, because on the line I've got Chief Space Economist George F. Pullen. George, how you doing this morning?
I'm doing excellent. It's a rainy day, and after we get done talking, I'm going to go start to plant some of my flowers and tomatoes. It's a perfect day for it.
Nice. So I just bought 27 acres in North Carolina. I will call you after this call to talk about what we're going to do there. But first, you asked me a question previously about what was the value of the space economy in 2025, Q1 2025. And so we had to back up a little bit, because the space economy value in the 2023 almanac was I'm a little bit ahead of myself, was $585 billion. And so the 2023 almanac, of course, runs up till December, but now we're in 2024. So, George, walk us through what is the value of the space economy going to be in January 2025?
Sure. So if we take a top-down approach and work on first principles, I think that, again, just keeping it short and sweet, we can do this from a macro or micro point of view, but let's do macro, let's do a top-down. So when we look at the space economy, we can usually get it from a function of the current government budgets that are being spent on space. The current government budgets being spent on space are more than half U.S. budgets. So let's talk about what changed in the U.S. budgets and what do we see changing in the U.S. budgets from this year till next year. So both Space Force and NASA requested additional funds for their activities. In terms of NASA, they were asking for approximately $5 billion more. $500 million more. I gotta get those zeros right. $500 million more. And Space Force was asking for $400 million more. It's worth keeping in mind, so that's less than $1 billion of an increase. Okay, so that's a very small increase out of a pool of close to $55 billion. Because remember, if we think about real inflation or true inflation being closer to 8 or 9%, if you've got a pool of current spending between 60 and 65 billion, just keeping up with inflation means that government spending on space should have gone up by 6 billion. And again, it's only going up by 1 billion. So that's actually going to slow some of our growth forecasts a little bit. How can that be offset? Again, we're the other big actors, right? So we've got accelerated spending by the Chinese with their space station. They're also talking about another space station, and there's conversations also about their increased lunar activities. We have some other increased activities from both some other Asian nations as well. Japan has really geared up its spending. So those likely will just seek to balance out the inflation-adjusted decrease in spending by the U.S. So I think our 585 probably goes a little less than expected, and that gets us something in the realm of the 615 to 625 range for 2025. So that's 615 to 625 range. And, we'll go through a longer process of doing the micro bottom up, but that helps us come up with that range estimate. I think the range estimate, put it into perspective, is important with other numbers people might be hearing. So the World Economic Forum put out their number very recently. Their number is a 2035 number of 1.8 trillion. I would put that, juxtapose the Milky Way economy number, the long-term Milky Way economy number of 4 trillion in the 2040s. If you, peg 2045 as a midpoint. Oh, by the way, any good economist is always going to give you range estimates. No point estimates here, folks. That's not the business. So if you look at the World Economic Forum number, it gets pretty easily to also that 4 trillion range in the 2040s. So it's good to see that number. The reduction rate now, though, and the slight slowdown we might see in 2025, that is concerning, because when we see slowdowns in these earlier years, that has a ripple-on effect for the 2040s time frame, and of course the 2050s time frame when we start talking about adding in cislunar economic activity. So I think that's the good range right now. We'll come back to you later when we have our micro part of the analysis done, but that's the current best guess.
Excellent. So somewhere between 620 billion dollars. I love it. I also think it's a little bit low given that Pakistan most recently put its own satellite on the moon. Pakistan hopped a ride on a Chinese rocket, which lets you know that China is taking the international approach to the space race as well. There's been some developments with the BRICS and what they're going to do for their own currency and how that's going to compete with the dollar. I know you might not think that's related to space, but in the fifth industrial revolution, he who gets to print the money gets to make the rules and set the values. So that's going to be super interesting. So, George, hang tight. Don't hang up. We're going to tell our listeners thank you for listening to this episode of The Space Economy. We will see you all in orbit. Peace.
Welcome to The Space Economy, your destination for the business of space.